Hey everybody, it's old Johnny Jokes here again, this time trying out a new setup for the camera angle. Let me know if you miss my green couch. It's the only thing anyone ever seems to comment about. But we're going to try a new angle this time, maybe with some photoshopped in visual aids here. But we're going to try out a new angle, so tell me what you think, or if I should go back to the ripped up green couch that my girlfriend made me buy. Anyway. With specials, podcasts, and Instagram Reels being so prevalent in today's culture, comedy has never been bigger, but it is noticeably absent in one particular medium, and that's film. Last summer, I went to go see The Naked Gun with my friend, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I haven't really thought about that series in a long time. I remember loving them as a kid, all the Zucker Brothers movies, like Airplane, and then things like Hot Shots, and the first couple Scary movies, but I really forgot about this genre for the past decade or so, maybe deservedly so. I remember being about 11 years old, going to see Epic Movie in the theaters, and hating it absolutely. It's one of the first times I remember as a kid, like, learning movies could be bad.
I am Zarsistron, equipped with advanced alien technology.
Leave Benny alone!
Granted, that wasn't by the same people, but when the new Naked Gun got announced, I was cautiously optimistic for a comedy movie, especially with Liam Neeson taking the role of Frank Drebin Jr., given his historic comedy background.
Let's do some improvisational comedy. Nah.
When I was looking forward to this movie last summer, I realized that I have found myself completely ignoring comedies in the theaters, and I feel like comedy movies have just disappeared entirely. The last time I remember laughing out loud at a theater in a pure comedy movie was probably 22 Jump Street, and that came out in 2014. I would say pure comedy movies became synonymous with the movies, you know, those spoof parody ones, and those have all but disappeared from the zeitgeist. Some of those are so borderline unwatchable, one might think the disappearance of comedy movies is actually a good thing.
You know who we are, don't you? Yes. You're the Black Eyed Peas!
Come on, not again.
Comedy has largely been relegated to a subgenre or subcategory. Mostly you'll see action comedies or horror comedies nowadays, mostly in the sphere of the MCU. It's been discussed to death how awful the forced comedy is in these movies, almost appearing like they're studio mandated or like required by law. I think a lot of people would agree the worst parts of the MCU saga are these forced comedy moments that bring tension and drama to a screeching halt nearly every time.
Blackagar Boltagun, keeper of the Terrigen Mists, the Inhuman King.
Blackagar Boltagard? Hit a guy, hit it there.
I would say that's why most people, I feel, think The Winter Soldier or Infinity War is their favorite Marvel movie, mostly because they have a straight-up serious tone. There's some comedy, you know, but it's not a riot of laughs. It was really interesting to me seeing the discourse of these movies evolve over time as people actually grew to dread the comedy in them. As a side note, I've seen a lot of people mock the MCU comedy style as the, well, that just happened kind of irreverent, self-referential Josh Whedonisms of the first Avengers movies, but I was actually curious if that line is ever even spoken in any of the MCU movies. The vibe is there, totally, don't get me wrong. The well, that just happened line never literally appears in any of the MCU movies, despite us all getting what we mean by that. I dug around online and people generally agree that, well, that just happened actually first appears in the 2000 movie State and Maine, a movie which I actually haven't seen, so we can get off this tangent that has nothing to do with anything.
Okay, you gonna be alright? So that happened.
So that just happened. But back to the matter at hand, the point I'm trying to make is that comedy has been relegated to more of a side dish or appetizer rather than the main course itself in the film space. Alright, my neighbor's dog is barking and I hope you guys can't pick that up. I looked through Rotten Tomatoes' top-rated comedies of 2025, and the number one is this movie Ephus, which is kind of a quirky comedy sports drama. Even the trailer itself cites itself more as a drama than a comedy. All the highest rated comedies actually cite themselves as 50-50 comedy dramas, and I would wager that most of them are leaning in more to the drama than the comedy themselves. I'm sure there's some moments of levity in the film, but I don't think that necessarily qualifies as a comedy film. The rest are either Amazon slop, children's movies, or honestly things I've never heard of. Deep Cover I actually enjoyed quite a bit, and I would have walked out on Anaconda if I wasn't killing time waiting to go to a friend's party. When you look at people's lists of best comedies of all time, you'll see that almost none of them came out in the 2000s, and the ones that did have not come out in the last 10 to 15 years. In my opinion, the best comedies of the early 2000s were the Scary Movie movies, at least the first couple anyway, and Anna Faris and Regina Hall should be respected as comedy icons more so than they are nowadays, in my opinion. The first two movies were written and directed by a combination of Wayans brothers, and the third one was directed by David Zucker of Airplane fame. When Harvey Weinstein refused to give the Wayans brothers a better deal on the third movie after the smash success of the first two, he took the film from them and gave it to David Zucker. You know, probably one of the worst things Harvey Weinstein has ever done. While 3 was also hilarious, in my opinion, it definitely had more of a sketch comedy vibe than a cohesive film that the first two did. By the time 4 rolled around, it was getting pretty stupid, but Ferris and Hall still carried it. And then 5 came out some years later, and that was just some bullshit that no one even needs to bother with, effectively killing the franchise. By that point, it had devolved into just pure XD, so random pop culture references that you would see in the other lesser movies.
It's your worst time yet. You're doing even worse on your creativity test. I mean, look at all the imaginative things I made out of blocks. Like this awesome plane.
So what happened? As I touched on before, comedy has now become a side genre in the filmmaking space. Action comedies, horror comedies, and everything else has now taken center stage in the movie landscape. Comedians aren't exactly leading men anymore like Jim Carrey or Eddie Murphy, who dominated the 80s and 90s with their films, being totally A-list stars and pure comedians at the same time. Jim Carrey had a generational run in the 90s with movies like The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber, while Eddie Murphy created some all-time classics in the 80s with Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, and Trading Spaces. Although whatever bullshit he makes nowadays, you know, he earned it. He worked hard. He deserves it.
Good morning, my neighbors!
Hey, fuck you!
Yes! Yes! Fuck you too!
By the way, if you want to see a good comedy film, be sure to check out my short film, The 27 Club, available here on YouTube and all streaming platforms. Well, just YouTube. But be sure to like and subscribe also while I have you. For me, my top 3 comedy films, American at least, are Smokey and the Bandit, Blazing Saddles, although I hate the ending of that movie, and Dr. Strangelove. I think what all 3 of these films have in common is that they are insanely quotable and memorable due to their incredibly sharp writing. Almost every line is either a setup or a punchline into a joke. They're iconic not for their acting or cinematography or special effects, but for their insanely quotable, memeable lines.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
And that's what I feel like is missing in modern comedies today. Back then, you would have characters existing as vehicles for comedy rather than storytelling or the plot, which did, to be fair, come second, but it is not the main goal in a comedy movie. Just like with horror, you can tell if it succeeds or fails by whether or not it scares you. A comedy movie is defined by its ability to make you laugh. I've never been a fan of that Judd Apatow era of comedies that were sort of more vibe, situational based than joke based. They kind of remind me of that new era of influencer comedian you see on Instagram that are less about telling jokes and more about being a affluent white friendship simulator. They're the kind of things that make you go, yeah, that was funny, but you never actually laughed. I did like Superbad, though. That movie's funny. That's a good one. That brings me back to my original point with the new Naked Gun movie. While I enjoyed it and I did have some laugh out loud moments in the theater, there was a strange datedness to this movie. For one, the overarching plot was parodying Kingsman, a movie that came out 10 years prior, and while I enjoyed it, is not exactly a landmark, iconic, cinematic moment, except for that one fight scene in the church. The film is about a tech billionaire emitting a high frequency through technology to make poor people kill themselves to cull the population, and it just felt really odd to be referencing Kingsman out of all movies. While the first Naked Gun parodies The Manchurian Candidate, I feel like that is much more of an iconic and easily referenced thing than compared to The Kingsman. But maybe that's just me being nitpicky. You know, despite all its flaws, I really did enjoy the movie, and it did make me laugh, which is the point. The movie industry has changed quite a bit to where a movie actually having jokes like The Naked Gun has become a marketing novelty. For one thing, movie budgets have ballooned to the extremes. Gone are the mid-budget $50 to $90 million movies. Movies are either expected to cost nothing and then blow up through virality, or be hundreds of millions of dollars and are expected to make billions to recoup their losses. Studios are not interested in just making some money. They either need to make all the money in the world or effectively spend nothing. Another issue is that films are expected to have international appeal now. Look at how well the Warcraft movie or Transformers does in China. That's why we keep getting these pieces of shit. Wordplay heavy, snappy English language comedies simply won't translate well to a non-American market. If this has to be the case, I think it would be cool if we could go back to like a Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin style era of comedy for that timeless, culturally agnostic appeal. So that's it. It seems like our greatest comedic minds are simply not being used in the film space nowadays. There's simply too much attention and money to be made in podcasting, Netflix specials, and Instagram content for them to even bother with films. Like, why would someone waste their comedic writing talents toiling away in the film studio system when they can do stand-up or make videos in their bedroom for much less work and way more money? Why would a talented comedic writer not make Instagram reels or do stand-up instead of toiling away at a script that's just going to go direct to video anyway? If you're looking for some recommendations for good comedy movies, I actually would recommend going overseas. Some of my new favorites recently are Extreme Job, a Korean film about a bunch of fuck-up cops undercover at a chicken restaurant. I also really enjoyed P-Mock, the Thai movie about a guy who's married to a ghost, maybe, and the Japanese film One Cut of the Dead, which I won't say anything about. You should just watch it. It's incredible. If you hate the first 30 minutes, please just sit through it. I promise it's worth it. So that's it. Tell me what comedy films you like. Do you think they're ever going to return to theaters? And what do you think is the future for the genre? Make sure you leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.